Good day, I'm Cedar Offerman, and today I'm gonna show you around my garden or my yard here and introduce you to a few medicinal plants. This here is Burdock. It's the one that grows quite large and makes little prickly burrs that stick on our clothes. Burdock is a wonderful liver cleanser. It's good to harvest the root in the early spring before the leaf crown really comes up a lot, or in the late fall when the leaves are dying back, because when we harvest root we want the energy of the plant to be down in the root. And when a plant has a lot of above ground growth or is flowering, then it's putting all of its energy into the flowers and seed making and so on. So the root is much more potent in the early spring or the late fall. I've used this plant for general, cleansing of the liver, if there's a sickness that is persistent. I've used the leaves as I steam them and use them as a compress when my partner was having serious back troubles. There was a disc about to herniate. He was losing sensation in his leg, and I would put the warm steamed burdock leaves on his back with a damp towel, and we found it very helpful. It is technically edible and is cultivated and called gobo, and people do eat the root. It seems very good for healing tissue damage and, wounds. Has a lot of healing properties. Of course, there's Dandelion. And that's another liver cleanser. And again, I often use the root, but one can nibble the leaves in the spring when they're young and tender, and they're not really bitter in the early spring. They're very good for cleansing the liver. And there's a big rose bush here. Wild rose petals are very calming, and they balance the hormones. Let's see what else we have around here. So here's our old friend Plantain. It's a common plant in most people's lawns. I haven't mowed a lawn in I don't know how long, really in my adult life. I've lived in the wildlands, and my so-called lawn is my pharmacopoeia. So I might hack back the grass once in a while, but I like to let the herbs grow. This one's Plantain, and it's awesome if you get a bee sting. You can chew it up and put the blob of chewed up herbs on the bee sting, and it very quickly, it has a sort of a sucking property, and it's disinfectant, and it just sucks the venom out of the bee sting if you get the plantain on there quickly enough before it gets too deep in your bloodstream. I've seen this herb cure a serious and persistent earache. Somebody called me up and I made a strong plantain tea, and this earache just went away pretty quick. I want to show you an herb over here that I don't actually know the name of, but dear friend of mine who's a Denny Cree grandma. She taught me about this plant, but she didn't know its name. And she just called it heart medicine. And I actually haven't learned its name yet myself. It also makes burrs smaller than the burdock. Gets quite tall. But I experimented on my friend with this when he was having heart palpitations. And my friend Kukum had told me that this was a heart medicine and that you chew the root. I'm sure you could simmer the root to make tea as well. So he was having heart palpitations and I dug up a root and he chewed on it and the palpitations stopped. So that worked well. Alrighty. The cedar tree. I've used the cedar fronds when I had a feeling like I was getting a cough or a lung infection or a sickness coming on, and I just simmer some cedar fronds for maybe 5 minutes and then put my pot on a hot pad on the table and put my face over the pot, towel over my head, and just suck in the cedar steam. And it's very good at clearing up those sorts of situations. Here we have a little comfrey, which I stuck a hunk of root in here a couple of years ago. That's what happens. And comfrey's pretty famous. It's also called bone set. It's very helpful to have around if somebody breaks a bone. You can use the root or the leaves. The root is probably a bit more bang for your buck, but the leaves are very effective. I've seen them heal an infant's bone in the shoulder clavicle in 4 days with comfrey packs. And if somebody's broken a bone, you can simmer the root again for maybe 5 minutes and drink the tea. You can use this to heal wounds, but not if they're puncture wounds, because the comfrey stimulates cell division and it will seal the surface of a puncture wound before the internal wound is healed, and that can cause infection and abscess. So we don't want to put comfrey on a puncture wound. And somebody recently told me you can make tea from thimbleberry leaves in the spring. I've tried eating the baby ones, or sniffing the baby ones. I'd crush them and sniff them, and they smell lemony. Go into the garden. I have this yarrow, which is probably sort of indigenous and just happened. It gets white flowers soon. It's budding up, getting ready to bloom. These leaves are fabulous for stopping bleeding. You can either drink tea of them internally or chew them up and put them on a wound, or make a ointment or salve with the leaves. The flowers are also they're antiseptic and they balance our hormones. They're phytoestrogenic. It's a phytoestrogenic herb, which means it balances our hormones. So it's very helpful in hormonal situations like menopause and such. And of course there's garlic, which is very helpful for killing pathogenic bacteria and yeast in our bodies. keeping our microbiome healthy. Garlic is antibiotic, so you don't want to overdo it on the raw garlic. You can harm your microbiome. If you ever feel sick, you can eat garlic and it'll clear you up, clear up the chest and help you feel good again. Well, I think I'll leave you with that for today. Don't want to overload your brains. And I hope that you enjoyed this little walk through my yard and learned some helpful things today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.